Hi everyone, I'm going to be showing you how I analyzed our class data today and hopefully give you a bit of understanding about how the statistics for this experiment work. So what I've opened up is SPSS, which is a statistics software a lot of people use. I think you probably learned about it in research methods, or at least I hope you did. It's a fairly common software. I have put in very minimal information already. All I have done so far is I have written subject as one of the variables, and I've put in each of your rat IDs, so 25 through 36. What I have also done, so this is our variable view, is I have put in columns for each schedule and each minute of each schedule. And now this is important. So this one, if I drag this out, you can see the full name, is schedule 1 minute 5. And as you can see, for each increment, I have created a separate column. This is because each rat went through each minute of each schedule. And so in order to analyze both minutes and schedules, we need to have a separate column for every single time instance in every single schedule. And so you can see I've lined it up here, and that's all I've done so far, is just written out the subjects, and I've just put this information in. Now we want to fill out this information. We want to put data here. I'm going over to our class data that you all filled out. Now we can't just copy and paste this over, and if you think about it, you can understand why. What we are interested in seeing is not just how many times a rat pressed a lever at 5 minutes, and then how many times it pressed the lever the next 5 minutes, or the next 5 minutes. What we're interested in seeing is, after 5 minutes, how many times did our rats, on average, press the lever? And then after 10 minutes total, how many times did the rats press the lever? So these numbers only indicate every 5 minutes. So in 5 minutes, there were 14 lever presses for rat 25. There were 15 lever presses in the next 5 minutes for rat 25. And then in the next 5 minutes, there were 33 lever presses, and it keeps going. In order for these to be cumulative, we need to add them up. And so fortunately, Excel actually makes this not too terrible for us as a process. So what I'm going to do is use a formula. So the first row for minute 5 is easy. For the first 5 minutes, we don't have to do any adding. This is how many lever presses we got after 5 minutes. Now for 10 minutes, we didn't just have 15 lever presses. Total, we had 15 plus 14. And so I'm writing out a formula of equals this cell plus this cell, and then I hit enter. And now I'm going to do that for minute 15. Since we have multiple numbers, I'm now going to use the equation equals sum, open parentheses, and I'm going to highlight the 3 cells that I wanted to add together. And so now we're getting cumulative numbers. After 5 minutes, there were 14 lever presses for rat 25. And then there were 29 lever presses after 10 minutes, 62 lever presses after 15, and we're going to keep going. Equals, sum, open parentheses, highlight all the cells I want to be added together, close parenthesis, enter. And so I'm going to do this for all of my numbers, all of my minute sections, enter, and this is the last one. All right, and so now I have, for rat 25, the cumulative data per minute. This is what we want to graph. This is what we want to analyze. Now, fortunately with Excel, I don't have to do that again. For all of them, I can just drag and go down. And so I'm going to do this. Let's see, I'm guessing how far I have to go. Went too far. Oh no, wait, one more. There we go. So I dragged and dropped, and this automatically took the data from the cell below this cell. So 14, 14, 15, 15. Yay for Excel! And so I'm going to just drag and drop the rows, and that really makes our math a lot easier. Let's drag and drop. And this is automatically doing all the calculations for me that I just did for that first row, except it's doing it a lot faster than I could. Drag and drop. Drag and drop. Okay, so now I have the cumulative total lever press numbers for each time point from the beginning of the experiment up until that time point. Now I have done this for our day 1 schedule data. Now I want to do this for all of our schedules. Fortunately, Excel once again makes this pretty painless. I am just going to copy this and I'm going to paste it. As long as I paste it in the same place that I copied from, it's going to give me all the data from this side. Isn't that cool? Super cool. Such a time saver. All right, and then I'm going to do that again. I'm going to copy, and I'm going to do this for FR3. If you paste over here, you're going to copy the wrong data. You have to make sure it's the exact same cell you had it in before. There we go. So we did not go up to FR4, so I'm only analyzing data from FR1 to FR3. And make sure that you put that in your papers, that we only went up to FR3. So now that we have this data, we can start to copy and paste this into SPSS. I want to note, I did have you guys record the number of reinforcers, but this isn't our research question. Our question is related to lever pressing, and so this is the data that we really care about. The reinforcing is important to have, but it's not what we're going to be testing statistically. So now that I have this, I have it set up so that this is schedule 1, 5-minute, 10-minute, 15, 20, 25, 30. I purposefully set this up the same way in Excel, or in a SPSS. So schedule 1, 5, 10, 15, 20. I made these identical so that it's very, very easy for me to copy and paste. Whenever you can plan ahead in doing this, it makes your life a lot easier. And there we go. It pasted in. And I had my subjects in order, just like I had them in order on the sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for each of these. Copy. And paste. I'm going to do it one more time for the Schedule 3 data. Copy. Oops. And paste. All right, so now we have all of the data for all of our animals for each minute in all 3 of the schedules. Now we can actually start to analyze our data. Since our subjects went through all of the schedules and each minute of the schedules, this is a within subject design. Within subject literally means the subject has been in each level of a variable. So all of these rats went through Schedule 1, Schedule 2, Schedule 3, and they went through each minute of those schedules. Within subjects, it's also called repeated measures. My cat says hi. Is also called repeated measures. And in SPSS, you're going to see it called repeated measures when you're looking for the test. So to analyze this, I know there's a lot here. I'm only going to focus on showing you a repeated measures ANOVA today. You are going to go to Analyze, and you are going to go to General Linear Model. This is another term for an ANOVA. If you guys recall from learning statistics in some of your previous classes, an ANOVA allows you to measure one variable at different time points or different levels. And in our case, that's what we have. We have schedules 1, 2, and 3, different levels. We also have minutes, 5, 10, 15, etc. And so this is absolutely an ANOVA. And in our case, it's a repeated measures ANOVA. So you go to Analyze, General Linear Model, and you hit Repeated Measures. All right, and so this is an important part for us. It wants to know what are the within subject variables that we have, and then how many levels are there for each. So we know that one of our first ones is schedule. And how many schedules do we have in this? We have 3. So you're going to hit add. What is our other variable? It's time. So we'll do minutes. And now for this one, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 levels at 5-minute intervals. So we hit 6 and we hit OK. You don't need to worry about this. Now we're going to hit define. And define is going to allow us to tell SPSS where the groups fall. Take a look at these numbers. We have schedule and minutes. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now that tells us, that's actually backwards. It should be minutes and schedule, but that's okay. We have 6 ones, if you can see, in a row here. So that tells us that it's looking at the different minutes because we have 6 levels to our minutes. And then if you look at the second number behind the comma, you see schedule numbers. So schedule 1, schedule 2, schedule 3. Oh no, I'm sorry. I absolutely said that wrong. Oh, I did put the schedules first. Okay. Schedule 1, minute time 1. Okay. I apologize. I had done this in the reverse direction before. So, schedule 1 and the first minute time that we have, which is minute 5. You're going to click on this and you're going to drag it over. And so you're telling it, this is the first schedule, this is the first section of minutes. This is the first schedule, this is the second version of minutes. And now, because I set it up correctly this time, this actually comes over very easy and it comes over in order. That's not always the case, and you have to be really careful that you're transferring things over correctly. So this is still asking for the first schedule and the 5th time frame, which is 25. And so we're going to keep transferring over. Now we've switched to schedule 2 and the first time frame. And so, yeah, I happen to set this up in a way that it all just goes over nicely, but be careful if you're ever doing this in the future. If you are not putting the correct groups in their correct slot, you're not going to be analyzing things correctly. All right, now it's asking for the 3rd schedule and the time slots 1 through 6. So that was very nice for us. Okay. I'm also going to go to plots because I like visual data. It makes me happy. I'm going to click on that. And now this allows us to tell SPSS what do we want on our axes. So in general, I like to put time on the horizontal axis. That way you're seeing things move across time. And so on a separate line, which would basically be the y-axis, you could put schedule. And you hit add. And then you hit continue. And that's all we need to do for this. We're going to hit OK. We're going to see what it gives us. It's thinking. There we go. So this is the long output I told you guys about that I managed to condense onto one page for you. And so a lot of this you don't need. It's extraneous. This is telling you what your within subject factors are in case you forgot, in case you didn't label them, but labels are your friend. You should label. Certain things it's going to give us are not important to the questions that we're asking for. So multivariate tests. We didn't want to run this test. We don't need it. SPSS just gives it to you. We're going to delete that. We're also going to delete this because we know what our within subjects factors are. Now, I didn't include this in your packet because I didn't want to confuse you, but this is a good thing to know. We have Mauchly's test of sphericity. Sphericity is kind of like homogeneity of variance. And I don't want to confuse you too much with that. But it's basically this idea of how much does your data vary around the mean? Does it vary minimally versus does it vary extremely? Because that's going to make your data look very differently. And the idea behind this test is if you have significant sphericity, significant meaning less than an alpha value of 0.05, then you can look at, on your test of within subjects, the sphericity assumed test. For the sake of our data, we don't need to do this. because this is all significant no matter which of these you look at. So these tests say, okay, well, maybe you don't have sphericity, and they're conservative at different levels, and it's very complicated statistics as to which ones you use. Don't worry about that. But that was why in class I told you can just assume sphericity, because it doesn't matter which of these you look at. This data is significant. So I'm going to remove this because we don't need it. This is really what we want. So this is our test of within subject effects. And since the main effects we were looking at were both within subjects, this is the data we care about. We did not perform any within subjects contrasts, so we can remove that. And then we did not have any between subjects factors. This test is just saying if they were between subjects. That's not correct. Not everything you get in your output serves a purpose. It kind of just gives it to you. That's why it's important for you to understand what you're looking for when you're running these statistics. What we care about is the within subject effects, and then here's our plot. And this should be familiar to you. This is what I gave you on the handout in class today. So, just to give you a refresher on the statistics, we have our two main effects of schedule, of our minute intervals, and then we have our interaction of schedule and minutes. If you remember in class, we talked about what the most important thing we're looking at here is. Having significant effects on all three of these points isn't necessarily all-encompassing, in that we were really asking one question. We were asking in our study, will lever pressing vary across schedules? We were not asking necessarily, will our lever pressing vary across minutes? Now, as it happens, because we have an alpha value of less, or a p-value less than our alpha level of 0.05, there was a significant effect. And logically, we would assume that as time goes on and we're adding up lever presses, that you would see differences in numbers between our first time period and our last. But that's not really what we were asking. What we were asking is, as we demand that they lever press more to get a reward, are we going to see them change in their lever pressing numbers? And so that means we're looking at the main effect of schedule. And here we see schedule. Here is your degrees of freedom. Go ahead and go with sphericity assumed, as I said in class. So your degrees of freedom is 2. This is your F value. You are going to have to report this in your results. Very large F value. And your significance is less than 0.0005 if we're talking about rounding. But you can just say is less than 0.001. That's a perfectly fine way of representing it. And so we are seeing a significant difference between our schedules, which is good. That's what we hypothesized. And so in reporting your data, you really want to focus on this. You can mention that we did see significant differences in minutes, but remember, that's not what we were really looking at. We saw significant improvement over time within schedules, but it's the difference between schedules that we care about. Finally, as I mentioned in class, we have an interaction here between schedules and minutes that is significant. And what the interaction tells you is that with our 3 schedules, how much they differ from each other varies depending upon the time point you look at. So as you can see here, with the data clumped together at the 5-minute interval, that is very, very different than what we see at our last interval. They're so far apart here. And all that interaction is saying is it really depends on what time you look at that determines how much these differ. I want you to note that it is not a given if you have a main effect here and a main effect here that you will have a significant interaction. That is not necessarily true. Just know that for your own reference. Once again, we did find a significant interaction, but this isn't really something we were looking at. You can report it, but don't focus on it. For the sake of science, you are really looking to support your hypotheses. and you had one hypothesis, and that is what you should focus on in your results and in your discussion. All right. I believe that is all I have for analyzing your data. If you have any questions, please let me know. I hope you found this video informative.